This, of course, is by no means a way that you should make your comics, but I was going to tell the story of how this came into being and how I created this comic. Okay, so let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, me and Mikey Bag of Donuts over there, we were coming back from SPX. And, you know, as the world is wont to do, it threw a bunch of difficulties into our path, which forced me to draw this character. Now, I had drawn this character a couple times, and I was just loving what was coming back. I mean, so fun. Look at this thing. Anyway, my students have called it Oatmeal Man, Mud Man. It's obviously a combination of a bunch of lovely things. The feet like bread loaves. I love this guy. Anyway, I knew I wanted to do something with this. Conversely, last year around this time at Brooklyn Independent Comics Showcase, Mike had said something to me which I thought was really funny, which I misheard actually. He said Hong Kong action movie, and I heard honk, honk, action movie. So I knew I wanted to do something with this title. The title came first, and then this little character showed up in my sketchbook. So first, this character shows up in my book. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. They started putting obstacles in our path. We're on our way back from SPX, which is a lovely show of independent makers, cartoons, comics, and otherwise that is held every year in Bethesda, Maryland. They just celebrated their 30th year anniversary. So if you are an independent maker, which if you're here, you're comics people. You are honorary comics people. So I know you're interested. Check out SPX. It's a great show to attend. And if you have wares, you know, try to get a table there. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but don't take it personal. Stay persistent. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. We're on our way back from SPX, and Amtrak is a monopoly, right? So we get there and there's a 2-hour delay. Look, I'm not a complainer. I'm just telling you what happened. 2-hour delay immediately. A train that was supposed to leave at 3:30 didn't end up leaving till 6. When we get on the train, they tell us that they have to switch engines. So after about another hour of sitting in one place, they finally took the engine and replaced it with another. We get onto the road, and sure enough, not an hour in, they say, uh-oh, our staff is now beyond their legal limit of work. The union will no longer allow them to work, so we have to switch crews. So we stop to switch crews. Then down the road a while, someone had entered the tracks and became struck by a train. So a tragedy had occurred. After they clear that, we're on our way. But this was many delays, and already we're about 6 or 7 hours into what should have been a 2-hour train ride. So what do? Instead of getting upset, I just go hard into my sketchbooks and I start drawing this character over and over and over again. Okay, so we see these drawings. They are, you know, I'm trying to take this character on an adventure. I was going through it, and instead of letting it get me down, I just turned into my sketchbook, and the way out was through. So I continued to put this character down into my sketchbooks, and it came in fits and starts. It didn't all come in order. It didn't all come in sequence. It just came as it came, and I took it as it appeared to me on my pages. I wasn't even sure what some of this would be, but I did know that my character was climbing up a large obstacle. This work is certainly development. It is me enamored with a character's design, form, this kind of like bouncy, floppy, flouncy, flowy character. And then also it is concerned with mark making. It's trying to make a lot of marks to depict different textures, and I'm exploring what I can do with the pen in this short and small space. But hours and hours and hours are going by, and I'm just mark making. Now, I once heard someone say recently, I think Monty Keene said that he does not do thumbnails because he says, if you do your thumbnail, you're drawing your comic 4 times. Right. He said, start in the top corner and move to the bottom corner, which I think is sage advice once you're at a certain level with your making. I do recommend thumbnails for design and composition, but in this case, I was working straight ahead in the sketchbook. And as you can see, the character is becoming richer and richer with every page turn. Well, I didn't fill not one, not one, not two, but 3 sketchbooks full of this character. So here I'm really starting to put the story together now. I am interested in the character and how I'm going to resolve what they're going to do and where they're going to go. After creating interstitial pages that stitch the story together, I now have a rough framework and a rough understanding of what this character is going through, and I'm able to create a resolution to the story, which I didn't have at first. If you remember, at first I was just taking it as it came, and I didn't know what this character was doing except climbing up a mountain. So part of this is, you know, the story of what I was going through when I made that is coming up here, right? Obstacles that I'm overcoming. But I didn't know where the character was headed or where it would go. Okay, so I fill up 1, 2, 3 sketchbooks full of this lovely character that I haven't named yet, actually. I'm not sure what I'm gonna call them, but 3 sketchbooks. Okay, so then I come home and I scan all that information. I then print out that info on 8.5 by 11 regular old printer paper. And here now, what I've done is I'm identifying what needs working. So as you can see, there's red pencil on the page. I go back into my printouts. These are just cheap printouts, right? Regular old printer printouts that I did at home. I go back into my printouts and I start to add in more and more detail. I enrich these pages with mark making, with extending the borders. Some of them are fine, some of them need a little help. I go in and I add more and more detail. All this is added, right? I talk about, on each page, I write down notes to myself. I expand borders. I talk about framing. I talk about what I want to change and what I want to keep. I add in little details where I think it needs a little polish. I add in full backgrounds. If we remember, these were just characters before, and now I've added in this whole entire area. So I'm really just working back into, all of this is added, working back into what I had already started in my sketchbook. And we can see this side by side. I'll try to find it. While I'm doing this though, I'm trying to enrich this experience. And if we look here, I'm pasting back into my sketchbook here. This is another piece of paper that was pasted in so that I could, I'm really just going at it. And you know, one of the people I credit with learning this stuff from is Bayer, Josh Bayer. He goes at his pages with a fury, and that has really inspired me. And you can see here, this is the original, this is the printout, and now I've worked back in here and I'm adding all this black, all these lines of motion, etc. This process was very freeing because it wasn't precious. I wasn't like, oh, what if I make a mistake? You literally cannot make a mistake. Some of them I kept as is, right? There's not much changed here except I've extended the foot so that it's not cut off, as you can see. You absolutely cannot make a mistake when nothing is precious because I can just print out another one of these pieces of paper and ink right on top of that. I got this idea from Mike Mignola. He said when he was working out Hellboy stuff, he would just print out like 10 copies of a page and then do different areas of solid black to figure out which ones he liked, and then that would be the final work. And I don't know if he used that imagery, but that was my process here. I was printing stuff out so that it wasn't precious, and I was going back in and touching it up. You know, we can do this side by side. I can show you more of what happens as soon as we get to it. Here's a good example. I think some of these pages I would invert in the final, and we'll look at that in a second. So here, perfect example, right? All these rocks added in. Okay, so I do that for, I don't know, this is a 44-page book. This is a not small book. And then I take those pages and I take those scans and I come into the final book and I add in tone. Not content to just let it ride, I want to add another touch. And you know, anytime you look back at your work, you're like, oh, I could have added some tone in here. Like a work is never finished, it's simply abandoned. But at some point you have to say, I'm done for now, right? And so we see side by side, not much changes in some of the areas. I probably got rid of these holding lines here to make this more open feeling. But some of them change immensely, like this one, right? In here, let's see, actually this is an interesting panel because we see that my handmade tone I didn't like, or I didn't think it was enough, so I added more. And I could have gone further down, but at some point you just have to draw the line and say, I'm gonna move on. I really like the idea of framing this character with the rocks above their head too, to give a sense of like climbing over and under. Yeah, This was a really fun experience and a really freeing one. And here you can see, I've even worked in with some white media here on top, going back in. So you can see the ink bleeding through the page. And I really do think this really helped me kind of let go of the preciousness of it and not be afraid to really get in there and do the work in a way that is less reserved, I think. So that was it. This is my process. This is Honk Honk Action Movie. And it was a wonderful experiment in comics making. And it was also more about the story of how this came to be. The story behind the story is kind of more interesting to me, at least, because I lived it. And they hurled everything. It was like a final exam in Buddhist Zen philosophy. It was like every single time we thought we were moving, there was another obstacle to overcome. So I just decided I wasn't going to let it get me upset. It wasn't about me. I'm presented with an opportunity. I'm presented with an energy. I can use that energy to get upset and then I make nothing, or I can harness that energy and redirect it and make something. And a 2-hour train ride. It was supposed to be 2 hours. It turned into 12 hours. I didn't get home till like 3:30 in the morning or something. It was bonkers. And Mike, to his credit, what a great travel partner. I mean, you like to think you select high quality people around you, and then when you travel, it's really when the metal is tested. And Mike is high quality, and I'm happy to have him. It's an honor to have him in my life and call him a friend. And he was witness to this whole thing. So if you have any questions about it, ask him. That's Honk Honk Action Movie. My name is Nick Forker. Thank you so much for coming out today. I'm so glad you're comics people with me. Later, y'all.